Good morning. I want to thank you all for joining us today. And before I take your questions, I'd like to make some brief remarks regarding the proposed fiscal 15 closeout supplemental spending that was discussed earlier at the Board of Estimates. The supplementals are required to align the appropriations with expenditures so that our budget is balanced. And because of our ability to plan for the future, we will assume these costs without harming the strong financial progress Baltimore City has seen during the recent years. The first supplemental is $20 million to cover the cost of responding to the city's recent civil unrest. This preliminary figure includes estimated city agency costs and reimbursements for the mutual aid provided by other jurisdictions, excluding the federal, state, and National Guard support. We are requesting this $20 million from the Budget Stabilization Reserve, more commonly known as the Rainy Day Fund. In order to replenish this fund, we've already worked with the state to apply for a federal FEMA reimbursement, and we are confident that we will receive a significant reimbursement from the federal government. And I'm also confident in our ability to make up the difference based on our recent budget projections. Additionally, we have requested $6.5 million to offset the costs of an extreme winter storm season, and an additional $16 million to cover our recently renegotiated police contract and for staffing overtime costs. These two supplemental items will be covered by surplus revenue from sources such as the transfer tax, recordation tax, income tax, and other revenue streams. I just want to be very clear. This is why we plan for emergencies and why we plan for the unexpected. When I entered office, I developed my 10-year financial plan with this type of flexibility in mind. I was determined to ensure that Baltimore City's budget should be as dynamic as possible, as nimble as possible, so we could respond to the unexpected without endangering the strong financial progress that we've seen in recent years. Thanks to my 10-year financial plan, we've already seen remarkable progress. The city's long-range structural budget deficit has been cut by more than half. We've reduced the property tax rate by more than 6% for homeowners. We've pumped nearly $100 million, new dollars, into blight elimination and infrastructure projects, and we've shrunk the city's unfunded pension and healthcare liabilities by $850 million. My commitment to this fiscal stewardship is resolute, and I'm confident that if we continue down this road, we will realize long-term sustainable growth for our city. I look forward to working with the City Council as it reviews these supplemental budget items so that we can continue the city's momentum towards fiscal sustainability. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. I'm going to start with questions on the budget, so we could, because I have my budget director as well as my finance director here. Any budget questions? Any budget questions?
I'll ask one. Can you talk a little bit about going forward how we're talking about drawing down the rainy day fund, and then we're also talking about the possibility of lost tax revenue. I know it's early, but we don't know how the riots will affect the city going forward. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of things might have to be evaluated going forward, or what kind of things might have to go on the chopping block?
So you talked about lost tax revenue based on what?
It's a question of whether there will be lost tax revenue.
So I think it's too early to say. What we've done is to create a budget that puts us in the best position to respond to these unexpected events. We have to be able to be nimble and prepare or respond to the storms, the unfortunate civil unrest. And I think we're in that position because of the decisions that I made. It's too early to say whether our revenues will be impacted over the long run. But if they are, I've already shown that I will respond in a way that continues to push the city forward.
And what percent of this money? Some of this money's come from the rainy day fund. Is that correct? What is that fund at now? What percentage of the budget?
Yeah. Good morning. Right now, the budget stabilization reserve is $105 million, and that's approximately 6.5% of the city's general fund.
And what's the goal for that would be at on an
Yeah,
annual basis?
according to our established policy, the goal is to have it at 8%. And to reach that goal, what we do is we appropriate a certain amount of money each year to go into the budget stabilization reserve, and we'll do that until we reach our goal of 8%.
Madam Mayor, you don't believe that the curfew impacted the amount of money the city's going to be pulling in from
I didn't
the
say that at all. I said that we don't know what the impact will be. The impact
So
won't
you think
happen.
there will be an impact?
I didn't say that at all. What I said was it's too early to tell. And as we determine what the impact we'll respond. I mean, as we determine what the impact is, we'll make sure to respond. Any other budget questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
But just to follow up, you do expect there will be less money? I mean, how could there not be?
I didn't say that. You're talking about less revenue for the businesses. Of course, there's an impact by the unrest and the state of emergency that was declared, and the curfew as well. Of course, there's an impact. We just don't know what that will be. Some businesses will be able to recover. Some will not. It's too early to say exactly what those numbers are.
I think the comptroller put out a figure of over more than 300 businesses that have been closed. Do you know, are you familiar with that?
Absolutely. There's a list of businesses that were impacted, and that's the number I think you're talking about, because many of those the 300 or so that have been impacted are already back open.
Mayor, in recent weeks, just last week, there's been a lot of turnover in your Office of Criminal Justice for different people that left for various reasons. I haven't heard you talk about your vision for that office. What do you want to see them do that they're not doing now, or what do you want to see out of that office?
So I think we have an opportunity to be dynamic and comprehensive in our policies and our work in the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. I would like to see it move faster and be a real leader in the community when it comes to the coordinated efforts that we have around criminal justice. And I'm confident that we're going to get there.
Madam Mayor, how is the deadliest month, how is it that this is the deadliest month in 15 years, and how is that anything other than a failure of your policies?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why that we're having a surge in violence. When I talk to the Department of Justice around these issues, when I say these issues, when they've been other cities that have experienced police officers who have been accused or indicted for crimes, and there's a lot of distrust and the community breakdown. The result is routinely increased violence.
Is that because the police are doing less?
So as I said before, there are a lot of reasons why.
Is that one of them?
We're examining all of those.
Arrests are down 50%.
Can you please let her finish?
I'm not 100% sure what you're doing. This is a very orderly press conference that we normally held. Your tactics are,
just asking a question.
You're not. You're being rude, just as you were before. So if you'd like to ask a question and give me an opportunity to answer it, we can do this. Otherwise, I'll end the conference.
Madam Mayor, the perception to outsiders might be that your administration can't get a grip on the crime in the city. How would you respond to that?
I think every time there's a surge in violence, there is this thought that it's out of control. And every time there's been a surge in violence before, because of the policies that we put in place and because of the actions, we've been able to get on top of it and bring crime down. And I'm convinced that we're going to be able to do the same again.
Mayor, yesterday, someone who's an ally of yours, or at least was perceived that way, and presented himself that way, Jamal Bryant, led a protest that was very disruptive to the morning commerce. What does you think that sends a signal to, I mean, if your friends are going to give you trouble This becomes kind of a leadership issue overall. How well do you think you're doing in projecting a position of leadership in this city at this moment?
Whether someone is a friend, a perceived friend, or a foe, they still have a right to their opinion and a right to protest. I disagreed, and I've been very clear that I don't approve or nor will I tolerate their tactics. You know, you're saying that he's perceived to be a friend. You know, there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. You know, I respect his work, and we've worked together before. I don't, whether or not he's, when you say bringing trouble to me, this is an issue that's a state issue. I don't, which.
But it was the city of Baltimore that was impacted. It was your city that was impacted.
So this is the question that I have, and I'm trying to understand. He's protesting a state issue that I'm not in disagreement on. Because his tactics, I don't agree with his tactics. Your assessment is that's a shot at my leadership, and I mean that's a question for other people to determine. I don't agree with his tactics. I've been very clear. I've also been clear that I was concerned about the funding for the youth jail. So I don't necessarily see the connection, but that's for you to determine.
Do you think that your leadership is being questioned from the outside looking in?
I think
that's what I'm trying to ask you. What's your sense of how well you're doing?
I think that anybody in my position's leadership is challenged every single day. It comes with the job.
Freddie Gray wasn't the first time an African American died in police custody.
Mm-hmm.
Why did it take burning buildings for you to request a civil rights probe by the Department of Justice?
So the civil rights probe wasn't the first thing we've done to address police brutality and in-custody deaths. Over the course of my administration, we've taken many steps, including enhancing reforms around excessive force, and we've seen progress because of it. We also went to the Department of Justice when I knew that we needed to do more, and made the request for a collaborative review. Understand that they have no obligation, the Department of Justice has no obligation to agree to a collaborative reform. If they believed that a civil rights review was necessary, they would have said it then. They didn't believe that that was necessary. So when you talk about why did it didn't take that long. This is something I've been focused on for years. That's why we've seen a reduction in custody deaths. That's why we've seen a reduction in excessive force. That's why we've seen a reduction in discourtesy complaints. That's why we've seen a reduction in the number of lawsuits that are brought against the police department. So, you know, when I believed that it was necessary to go the next step and request a pattern and practice review, I did that without hesitation. That wasn't the first step I took towards reforming the police department. I have a very strong track record with results on working to reform this police department, and I'll continue to do that.
I think there's a perception that there have been peaceful calls for justice and accountability for a long time. The ACLU says, you know, at least 31 people were killed after police encounters in Baltimore City since 2010. The city itself has paid out nearly $6 million over 100 cases of police brutality lawsuits. So why did you act so late? I'm disputing your characterization. You're talking about lawsuits. Many of them happened before 2010 that you're talking about. So, you know, if I have a strong record of police reform, taking very aggressive steps toward reforming the police department and getting better results, and the numbers bear that out. The death of Freddie Gray was tragic. That does not erase the fact that this is not new, and this is not something I take lightly. This is something that we've been working on for years. So to suggest in your question that I waited, really, either you are intentionally trying to mischaracterize my record or you haven't read it. You haven't understood it, because I have a long track record of pushing for reform, and I'll continue to do that.
Madam Mayor, when you talk about reform, Madam Mayor, when you talk about reform, we were here for the riots. We all witnessed how upset you were and how outraged you were by the death of Freddie Gray. Why is it that it seems as though you were more outraged by the death of Freddie Gray than you are outraged and angered and upset and leading rallies over the death of 30-plus people who died from homicides this month?
So again, you can choose to be selective about my track record if you'd like, to mischaracterize, but it's just not true. I've led
When was the
initiatives.
last rally that you led about the deaths of all these people this month? Are you planning one?
Mayor, you,
Rick, you have a question?
last night Commissioner Bass went before the police union and he apologized. He said, "I'm sorry I let you down," and he seemed to be saying he left them out there unprepared the night of the riot. What do you make of those comments and his apology to the rank and file?
I think that it's very clear that there's the relationship between the commissioner and the rank and file is strained, and I think the commissioner is working very hard to repair that relationship. I think it's essential for the department to continue to move forward, that they have that ability to have those open dialogue, to get things off their chest, for the commissioner to explain how he feels to the rank and file officers. You know, he has a dual role in the sense that he has to be the leader of the department in good times and in challenging times, and he also has an obligation to the community. And it is often challenging to balance on that tightrope. And I commend him for doing the outreach he's done in the community, and also having frank and tough conversations with the FOP.
Superluck question. I understand that a judge just ruled that would allow the Superluck to move forward. Do you have a timeline for issuing RFPs? Will it be one project or broken up as been discussed in the past? Yeah, so we're still taking a look at whether it'll be broken up. We want to make sure it moves forward as a successful project. That's why when they were unable, the previous developer was unable to fulfill their obligations with the site. That's why I made it clear that we weren't going to renew. This project is very essential to the transformation and the rebuilding of the West Side, which has seen a lot of progress. This project could be a catalyst for either more development, especially when you take a look at the areas that are near that, with the mechanic project finally moving forward. So, I was very pleased with the ruling. I hope that this is the end of the court process for the super block. So many people are depending on that project moving forward, and I'm glad that we stood up and said that we weren't going to delay it anymore, that we were going to make the tough call necessary so we can move forward. So I'm looking forward to moving forward the RFP as soon as possible. Okay, but no specific time on it?
Don't have a time frame. If we do, I'll make sure to have my team follow up.
Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Howard, can you come back?